We begin today the Gemara at the Mishnah towards the bottom of Daf Pevav Amud Beis. This is another Mishnah that will explain the list that it said in the beginning of this Perek regarding Elu Heina Nechnokin, the ones that are Chayev Chenek. One of them was the Zaken Mamre. Zaken Mishnah Zaken Mamre Al Pi Bezdin. This is talking about a Zaken, which is an individual that's part of a Bezdin, and then he is rebelling against the Bezdin, and this is the Bezdin of 71 in Yerushalayim in the Beis HaMikdash, and he paskins and teaches people to do the opposite of what the Bezdin says. That's the Zaken Mamre, the Zaken that rebels. Shenemar,
it's a Talmud Chacham that can argue with big Rabbanim.
No, but he's a Zaken Mamre though, that's Chayev Chenek. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Ki yipole mimcha dova la mishpat. And the pasuk there goes on to say, which will be darshan in the Gemara, all the details of this pasuk, that when there will be a subject that's unknown, and then you'll go Elamakim Shivcha Hashem Alekecha, and there the Bezdin Hagadol in Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash will paskin, and then this individual goes back to his city, and he teaches people to do the opposite, and he does the opposite of what the Bezdin Hagadol said. Okay, so now here the Mishnah describes the seder of what happens when you have a bezdin in a city that has a shaila, that has an argument about how to paskin. Shloisha bate dinim hayusham. When you come to the Beis HaMikdash, there were actually 3 bezdins there. Echad, one of the bezdins, Yoshev al Pesach Harabayis, is sitting by the entrance of the Harabayis. Now, the title of the entrance of Harabayis here doesn't actually mean to the entrance of the Harabayis, but it means by the entrance to the Ezras Noshim, which is at the end of the Harabayis going into the Ezras Noshim. Then there was another bezdin. Ve'echad Yoshev al Pesach HaAzara. Another bezdin was sitting by the opening of the Azara. This is by the end of the Ezras Noshim, in the door which goes into the Ezras Yisrael. There was another bezdin sitting there. And then ve'echad Yoshev v'lishkas hagazis. Those, the first 2 bezdins that we spoke about, are a bezdin of 23. Then when there was a third bezdin of 71, and that's the bezdin that sat actually in the room, which is called Lishkas Hagazis, that was built half in Chayil, half in Kodesh, by the Azar of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so now, when you have a bezdin that was in one of the cities that has a shaila, has an argument, so they come together. First, they come to the bezdin that's sitting by the Harabayis. And this Zakin says, Kach dorashti. This is how I expound the pasuk, and the Kach dorsha chaverai. This is how my friends darshan. Kach limadeti. This is how I taught, and the Kach limdu chaverai. This is how my friends, my colleagues of the bezdin teach. So now im shamu, if this bezdin that's sitting there by the Harabayis, they heard, they know what the halach is. So amalehem or imrim lehem. This bezdin tells them what the halach is, and that's it. So you have it resolved right there. But vimlav, if they don't have the answer, so then bon lehen loisan shal pesach hazara. So they continue to the next bezdin that's further up, the bezdin that's by the opening of the hazara of Ezras Yisrael. And again, v'oimer, this Zaken says kach dorashti v'kach dorsha chavera. This is how I darshan, and my friends expound differently. Kach limadati. This is how I teach v'kach limdu chavera, and my friends teach differently. So again, im shamu. If they heard, if they know what the answer is, so imrim lahem, they say what the answer is. But now vim lav, if they don't know the answers, and then you have to go up. Elu ve'elu ban lebezdin hagadish of Lishkas Hagazis. They come together to the great bezdin of 71, which is sitting in the Lishkas Hagazis. Shemimenu yetze Torah l'chol Yisrael. It's from there that the Torah goes out to all Yidden. They're the ones that paskin. Shenemar min hamakem ahu asher yivchar Hashem. That it's from this place that Hashem chose, and here asher yivchar Hashem refers specifically not only Yerushalayim, not only by the Ha'azara, but specifically the Bezdin HaGadol, which is in the Lishkas Hagazis. And the Bezdin HaGadol paskins. Now, if this one zaken, one individual from the Bezdin, goes back to his city, now shana v'limid kederech shahayalamed, if he just teaches people the way he taught before, different than what the Bezdin HaGadol paskins, so potter, he'll still be potter from Misa. But v'im hayre lasais, if he doesn't only teach and says, oh, this is how I understood, but he actually teaches people that this is what they should do against what the Bezdin HaGadol said, then chayiv. Then he'll be chayiv Misa, he'll be chayiv chenek. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, v'a'ish asher yaseh bezodain. So what this means is, and the pasuk goes on there to say, v'ish asher yaseh bezodain lebulti shmoya lakayin, and so on. So eina chayiv at sheyoyre lasais. He's not going to be chayiv unless he's going to teach people to do different than the Bezdin HaGadol. And the Mishnah finishes off with one other din. Talmid shahayre la'asais. If we're talking about a student that is not yet old enough to be part of the Bezdin. So Rashi says that we're talking about someone that is not 40 years old, and therefore he can't yet be part of a Bezdin. So this Talmud that then teaches people to do different than the Bezdin Gadol in Yerushalayim, Potter. He'll be Potter because he's not yet on a level that he can be part of the Bezdin. So Nimsa Chumroi Kulai. In this case, it comes out that this stringency that there is regarding him, that you can't rely on him and he can't be part of the Bezdin, in this case, it'll be a leniency that if he is going to teach people and tell them to do opposite of the Bezdin Gadol, he won't be Chayiv Misa. Okay, so the Gemara begins here with a Braise that will go through all of the details in the pasuk that the Mishnah began to quote, Ki Yipolim Imcha, and it's a very arichizdige pasuk that says many different details regarding what the argument here, that this Zakim Mamri, what is he rebelling against the Bezdin Gadol? Tan Rabbanis who learned in the Braise, the pasuk begins, Ki Yipolim Imcha Davar, which simply means that there'll be something that it's unknown and you have to go to the Bezdin. So the Braise darshans from the word Yipole, we learn that it means b'muflish of a bezdin akosim medaber. That it has to be someone that is an expert that could be part of the bezdin. Now, what does this term mufle here come to exclude? The last halacha that the Mishnah said. If he's a Talmud and he's not 40 years old and he can't yet be part of the bezdin, so the halacha of zaken mamre does not apply to him. That's Rashi's pshat. There are other Rishonim that say, I think the Rambam says, that from here we learn that this halacha of zaken mamre only applies to someone that got proper smicha. Otherwise, it doesn't apply. Then the pasuk goes on to say,
the pasuk itself goes on the zaken.
Yeah.
But the drush, the brisa goes on the bezdin.
No, it goes on the zaken as well. Mufla shebe bezdin. Okay, that zaken mamre also. Who is it referring to? The mufla, meaning the zaken, has to be a mufla, not just a talmud. Then the pasuk says, Mimcha davar. You look on the side here, you have the pasuk. The Gemara is going to targum the entire pasuk. Mimcha davar la mishpat ben dam ledan ben din ledin ben nagad lenagad divrei rivais. We're going to go through every detail here now. So when it says Mimcha, what is the Mimcha referring to? Ze yayitz. This refers to one that gives advice, and as we'll see soon in the Gemara, what is this advice for? Advice for when you have to make a ibiyar, and you have to know all the details and the secrets exactly of how to figure out whether you have to make a shana muberes or not. So he's going to argue with the Bezdin Gadol regarding this subject. And we see this expression of Mimcha, that it refers to this because the pasuk says, Mimcha yetze choshev al Hashem ra yayitz b'liyal. So in this pasuk he uses the term Mimcha regarding the term yayitz, and yayitz means one that gives advice regarding the side of the ibur, of making a shana muberes. Then the pasuk goes on to say davar. What does davar mean? Zu halacha. This refers to a halacha. What this means is a halacha l'Moshe misinai. If there's an argument about if he's rebelling against the bezdin regarding a halacha l'Moshe misinai, is chayiv misa. Then the pasuk says la mishpat. What does mishpat mean? Ze hadin. Mishpat refers to something that's learned from a din. This din that the Gemara is talking about here refers to a halacha that's learned from a gzeira shava. Even though in the continuation, you would think mishpat refers to a halacha, to mishpat, to a judgment, but that already says later on, the continuation of the pasuk. Then the pasuk says davar. What is, where am I over here? Go back down the line, sorry. Ben dam ledam, that's where I'm holding. Ben dam ledam, what does mean that there's a judgment about blood, between blood and another blood? What this means is ben dam nida, dam leida, dam ziva. When he rebels against the bezdin, whether it's regarding a subject of dam nida or dam leida or dam ziva, as we'll see soon in the Gemara regarding a woman that sees blood in different time periods that have different halachas. Then when it says ben din ledin, this means ben din nefashis, din mamanis, din makis, whether he's arguing on the bezdin for matters of din nefashis or money matters or matters of makis when you have to give lashes. Bein nega lenega, bein negi adam, negi batim, negi begodim, any of the types of negoim, whether on the body of a person, or in the house, or in the garments, also regarding this. Then the pasuk says divrei, so the word divrei is being darshaned here as words, which means halachas that come from the words that a person speaks. Elo acharamim v'arachim v'agdeshes. When a person is saying that something should be hektish in different ways, whether cherem, erechen, hekdeshes, as we'll see later in the Gemara, different ways of how a person dedicates something to hektish. Rivais, the term rivais means things that come from a fight or a quarrel. Zu ashka asaita. This refers to halachas related to asaita, which is a result of a fight between her and her husband. Varifas egla, when there's a person that's found dead, which is also a result of a meriva, or taras mitzaira, which a person becomes a mitzaira because of lashon hara. It's also connected to divrei rivais. And the pasuk says bisharecha. What does bisharecha mean? Zu leket shikha upeya. This refers to what you have to leave in the field for the poor people, the leket, shikha, and peya. So, because it says there regarding leket shikha upeya, va'achlu bisharecha, so this refers to those things in the field that you have to leave for the poor people. The kamta, then the pasuk says the kamta, that you go up. What does it mean you go up? So it sounds like the pasuk is saying that we're talking about this Zakeh Mamre that was sitting in a Bezdin in his city, wherever he was, and then he's going up to the Bezdin HaGadol in Yerushalayim. Mi Bezdin, he stands up from his Bezdin where he is in his city. And then Va'alisa, what does it mean they go up? Why does it use the term of going up? It's because Beis HaMikdash is higher than the rest of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore it says this term. And then the Braisa adds, even though it's not learned from this pasuk here, that Eretz Yisrael gevayim v'kol ha'aratzis, and Eretz Yisrael is higher than all other places in the world. Ela mokim, you go up to the place. What is the mokim? Melamed sham mokim gaidim. That it's this place is gaidim, that the halacha of Zakeh Mamre should apply, which means only if he argued with the Bezdin HaGadol, which is actually there in the place, in the Lishkas HaGazis, in the Beis HaMikdash, then he'll be chayiv misa for being a Zakeh Mamre. Okay, so now the Gemara starts here to explain this Braisa. It starts with a detail that's mentioned in the end of the Braisa. It's understood that the source of what we're saying here, that the Beis HaMikdash is higher than the rest of Eretz Yisrael, because it's saying here that this Bezdin that the Zakeh Mamre is coming with is going from somewhere in Eretz Yisrael, coming up to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash. Elo, Eretz Yisrael, Gevaya, Mikol Ha'aratza, Ismirole. What's the source that Eretz Yisrael is a higher place than the rest of the lands in the world? So there's another pasuk for this. It says, Lasad Lavai, Lechein, Hine, Yamim, Boim, Noam Hashem, Chai Hashem, Asher Hela, as Bnei Yisrael, Meretz Mitzrayim. So it uses here the term of Hela. Hashem will bring up Yidden from Meretz Mitzrayim. So when actually we're not going to say anymore that we're going to thank Hashem for bringing us up out of Mitzrayim, Kiyim, rather, Chai Hashem, Asher Hela, Asher Hevi, Ezer Beis Yisrael, Meretz Tzafayna, Umikol Ha'aratz, Asher Edachtim Sham, Vayeshul Ad Mosam. That we'll thank Hashem, Lasad Lavai, for bringing Yidden up, and bringing Yidden back to Eretz Yisrael from the north and from all of the lands that Yidden were scattered around in the world. So here we see in the pasuk it uses the term of Hela when it speaks about bringing Yidden back to Eretz Yisrael.
Show it's the highest.
Again, so what?
Show it's the highest.
Hela. It says Hela from all. It says all Aratzis from Eretz Mitzrayim, and then it says from all Aratzis. Hela from all Aratzis means going up. There is actually a discussion in Mefarshim about this. How can you say that Eretz Yisrael is higher than all the lands of the world? The fact physically is that it's not so. That there's other places in the world that are taller, mountains and higher places than Eretz Yisrael. Okay, some say that it means only the areas that are surrounding Mamash around Eretz Yisrael. That over there, Eretz Yisrael is the highest place. But there's other pshatim in this as well. Okay, now the Gemara is going to come back to explain the Braisa that we just brought that went through all of the details of the pasuk. But before this, it brings another Braisa that brings three opinions about what's the basic requirement of this Zakeh Mamre that rebels against the Bezdin, and then it'll come back to explain the Braisa that we had before. Tan Rabbanon, so we learned in another Braisa, Zakeh Mamre ein chayev ela al davar shezedoine kares v'shigase chatas. The Zakeh Mamre, it's only if it's a subject where the punishment, if it's b'mezid, would be kares and b'shoigi would be chatas, and it's on this that he argues with the Bezdin HaGadol, then he would be chayev. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. Rab Yehuda says, no, it doesn't have to be something which is kares. It has to be al davar she'ikroi midivrei Torah. It has to be a halacha of something that it's the ikra of this halacha. It says clearly in a pasuk of the Torah. Upirushai midivrei seifrim. But then the explanation of how this pasuk is expounded, the Chachamim darshan this, and it's regarding such a subject that this Zakeh Mamre is rebelling against the Bezdin. Rab Shimon says, even if it's a halacha that's not mefurish in the pasuk and it's not kares, it's just a drasha that Chachamim are darshaning according to the Yud Gimel Midrash HaTorah Nidreshes. They're darshaning a diktuk in the pasuk, and this Zakeh Mamre argues on this diktuk, on this drasha. The halacha of Zakeh Mamre and the Chi of Misa will apply here as well. Okay, so the Gemara brings the sources for these three opinions. My time with Rab Meir. What's the source of Rab Meir's opinion? Gomar davar davar. He learns Gzeira Shaveh with the words of davar davar. Ksivacha, here the pasuk says, Ki polim emchad davar la mishpat. Uksiv Hasam, and then in another pasuk it says, V'nelam dava meni akol. Now over there, V'nelam dava meni akol is also a case, it's another case where there's a bezdin that taught the people to do something, and it turns out that it was something which was a mistake, that it was against what the Torah says. That's the helam davar, par helam davar shel tzibur. That's the halacha of nelam davar. So now, mala halon, just like over there, davar shechayv was doine kares v'shegase chatos. It's speaking about a case of something which b'mezid would be kares, and then if it's b'shegig yichayv chatos. As the Gemara in Hoyrius learns out over there regarding that v'nelam davar. So Avkan over here as well, when it says ki yipolim umchad davar. The whole halacha of Zakim Mamre is only if it's a case where there's Karis and Chatos. That's Rab Meir's source. Rabbi Yehuda that says it doesn't have to be Karis, but it has to be something which is explicit in the Pasuk, and there's also a drasha that Chacham are darshaning on this. But Rabbi Yehuda, he says, the Pasuk here says, Al Pi Torah Asher Yerucha. So these two expressions tell me, the Ikir Torah has to be a subject where the Ikir Din says in the Pasuk, and also via Yerucha. But then there's a detail that the Chacham are darshaning, and it's regarding this, that the Zakim Mamre is rebelling against the Bezdin. But Rab Shimon says that it says also here in the Pasuk another term. Va'asher yagidu l'cha min ha'mokem hahu. That the pasuk says, "V'asisa pi adava she'gid l'cha min ha'makom hahu," that you should do like what the Bezna Gadol tells you in that place. So this means afila koldu. Asher yagid l'cha means whatever the Bezna Gadol tells you, even if it's something that's not mefurish in the Torah, and there's a koldu, there's some diktuk that they have in a pasuk, and the Zakim Mamre is rebelling and arguing against this. Al bichayev misa. Those are the three opinions here. Okay, so now the Gemara will go back to explain the previous brayse. All the details that we mentioned before in the previous brayse, does that fit with Rav Meir's opinion? Rav Meir says it has to be a subject where there's going to be a chi of kodesh involved. So we mentioned a lot of details in the brayse before. Is there a chi of kodesh by all these cases? So Amalei Rav Huna bar Chinna says to Rav, Tirgem li lahamas nita. Explain to me the brayse that we brought before with all the details. I'll leave it to Rav Meir. How this works according to Rav Meir that there could be a chi of kodesh. So Amalei Rav Papa, Rav turns to his student Rav Papa and says, "Puk tergemale. You go out and explain to Rav Huna bar Chinna how all the details mentioned here could be leading to a chi of kodesh." Okay, so now here the Gemara is going to go through every detail of this brayse to explain how there's a chi of kodesh here. And the point that we'll see from what the Gemara will explain is that it doesn't have to be a case where the argument or the rebellion of the Zakim Mamre against the Bezdin is mamish regarding a case where this itself is actually a chi of kodesh. Even if they're arguing about a subject that could lead later on to something that will end up being kodesh, even if it's one cause, another cause, and another cause, but eventually it could lead to a chi of kodesh, this will qualify for what Rab Meir is saying, that there's a chi of kodesh involved and it'll be a Zakim Mamre. Okay, so the Gemara begins. The Brayse said, "Ki palei b'muflish b'bezna kasim medaber." That we're talking about the muflish b'bezna, which means he has to be a mumche, not just a talmid. And then it said, "Mimcha ze yayitz." What does the yayitz mean? Sheyideya la'ab b'shanim u'lekvaya chadoshim. The yayitz means someone that knows how and when you have to add a new month to the year and how to establish the new months. Keditnan, as we learned in a Mishnah where it says, "Hein heidu." Okay, so now the Gemara here is bringing the Mishnah where we see a machlokes regarding the concept of Ibur Shanim, and this could end up being an Issa Kodesh. So what's this machlokes? So the Mishnah says, Hein Eidu, that they testify, this the Hein over here refers to Rabbi Shua and Rav Papias, which is brought in Masechta Yediyah. So Rashi brings it here. So these two Tanoim testified, Shema Aberem es Hashana, that the Bezdin could decide whether to add a month to the year, another Adar, Kol Adar, the entire month of Adar. Even to the last day of the month of Adar, Bezdin could decide to add another month of Adar. The other Chachamim said, Adar Purim, that only until Purim could they decide to add another Adar. But after that, you can't be Ma'abed the year anymore. But these two Tanai, Rabbi Shua and Rav Papias, they said no, that you can decide even afterwards. Okay, so now here you have a machlokes regarding such a case where the Bezdin is going to decide to be Ma'abed the Shana after Purim. Is the Shana going to be Mu'beres or not? So now the Ila Hai Gisa, whether you have the Zaken Mamre that's rebelling against the Bezdin, and let's say the Bezdin is paskening like one opinion. Let's say the Bezdin is paskening like the opinion that it could be a Shana Mu'beres, and the Zaken Mamre is saying that it can't be a Shana Mu'beres, or the other way around. So then kashari chametz b'Pesach. So if you're rebelling against the Zaken Mamre of the Bezdin, then it's going to be chametz on Pesach, because the Bezdin said that the Pesach is a month later. And according to you, Pesach is a month earlier. Pesach, eating chametz on Pesach is a chi of Kodesh. Or v'ila haigisa, if it's the other way around, if the Zaken Mamre is saying that you could be ma'abed the year, the Shana, and there's an extra month, and the Bezdin says you can't. Also, kashari chametz b'Pesach, because now according to the Zaken Mamre, Pesach is a month later, and according to the Bezdin, Pesach is a month before. So here you see a case regarding Ibur Hashana that it'll cause a chi of Kodesh. So therefore the Zaken Mamre is chayiv misa. The next thing it said in the Braise, davar ze halacha, that when it says in the pasuk davar, it means a halacha l'Moshe Misinai. So what halacha l'Moshe Misinai are we talking about that could be a chi of Kodesh? Zu halacha is achadasar. This is halachas that refers to the 11th day regarding a woman that sees blood. So this what it's based on over here is a machlokes regarding the cycle of a woman. Minatayra, by a woman when she sees blood, she can either be a nida or a zava. What's the difference? A nida is a period of 7 days, which is the regular time in her cycle when she sees blood. Then 11 days is after that period of 7 days. There's another 11 days. If she sees blood anytime during that 11 days, she's not called a nida, she's called a zava. A zava has a different halacha. By a nida, if she sees blood, so then she's tameh for 7 days. But by a zava, what's the halacha by a zava, which is seeing blood not in the regular time when she sees blood? So if she sees blood for 1 day, then the halacha is that she's a shemeres yoim keneged yoim. So then you tameh for 1 day afterwards, and then you go to the mikveh and she's tired. If she sees blood 2 days, also the same thing. If you see blood 3 days while she's a zava, then she becomes a zava gedoyla and she has to wait 7 days and bring a carbon. Okay, but now here there's a unique halacha regarding the 11th day. The 11th day, so here there's a halacha l'Moshe Misinai that if she sees blood on the 11th day, even though usually, as I just mentioned, the halacha is that during a zava, if she sees blood 1 day, then the next day she's tameh and shemeres yaim keneged yaim, and only then could she go to the mikveh. But on the 11th day, you don't have to wait another day. On the 11th day, right away on that day, she can go to the mikveh and she's tired. Right? Because the day after is already the 12th day. The day after, which is the 12th day, is already not part of the period of Ziva. So therefore on the 11th day, you don't have to wait another day. That's the halacha about the 11th day that everybody agrees to. But now, here there's a machlekes regarding the 10th day. The Itmer, so we learned the following machlekes, Asiri, regarding the 10th day of this period of Yemei Ziva, Rabbi Yechanan Ama Asiri Kichi. Rabbi Yechanan says the halacha of the 10th day is similar to the 9th day. Just like by the 9th day, there's the halacha of Shemeres Yoim Keneged Yoim. The same will be with the 10th day. It's just like the 9th day. Just like the 9th day, if she would see blood on the 9th, 10th, and 11th day, she would become a Zava Gedoyla. So the same thing is also with the 10th day. Even though the 10th day, there's only 2 days left to her ziva, but nevertheless, according to Rabbi Yechanan, it's still the same halacha like the 9th day. This unique halacha l'Moshe Misinai that the 11th day is different does not apply to the 10th day. And then she's going to have to wait 1 more day on the 11th day in order to be tired. However, Rab Shimon ben Lakish Amar, Rish Lakish says, Asiri ka'achadasar, that the 10th day has the similar halacha like the 11th day. Which means that on the 11th day itself, just like on the 11th day, you don't have to wait another day in order to be tahir. It's on the 11th day itself that you can be tahir. It's the same thing on the 10th day. So the Gemara explains, Rabbi Yechanan Amar Siri Kichi, that the 10th day has the halacha like the 9th day of this period of Ziva, Machi, Boy Shimur, just like by if she sees blood on the 9th day of her Ziva. So she has to wait another day, Afasiri Boy Shimur. So the same halacha applies on the 10th day. However, Rish Lakish says, Asiri ka'achadasar, that the 10th day will be just like the 11th day. Ma achadasar loy boy shimor, just like the 11th day is unique. That if she sees blood on the 11th day, there's a halacha l'Moshe Misinai that the 11th day she does not have to be shomer the 12th day, because the 12th day is already out of this period of the Yemei Ziva. Afasiri, so too on the 10th day, loy boy shimor. She does not need any shimor. She doesn't have to wait an extra day. The point is that according to Rish Lakish, the halacha l'Moshe Misinai, that the 11th day is unique, has 2 details to it. Number 1, regarding if she sees blood on the 11th day. And number 2, if she sees blood a day before the 11th day, that the 11th day is not a day that you need for shimur for the 10th day. So it's really two halacha l'Moshe Misina is all regarding the 11th day, according to Rish Lakish. However, according to Rabbi Yechanan, there's only one halacha l'Moshe Misina regarding the 11th day, and that is if she sees blood on the 11th day, that she will not have to have a shimur of another day. Okay, so now this is the case here where you have a machlokes b'nigeya to the shimur of the next day, whether you have to wait or not. So if there's an argument here between the zaken mamre and the other chachamim of the bezin regarding this, one holds like Rish Lakish and the other one holds like Rabbi Yechanan. This is a matter where there's a kodesh, because we're talking here about a zava. This halacha of shemeres yom keneged yom, you chayav kodesh for this, as Rashi brings the drasha here. So if there's an argument about this, either way is going to come out something that will be a issue of kodesh. The next thing it said in the Braisa was mishpat. What does mishpat mean? Zeh hadin. This is a halacha that's learned with a gzeira shava. So if there's an argument, if the zaken mamre is rebelling regarding a gzeira shava, there's also a matter of kodesh. So what's the matter of kodesh here? It says the Gemara, it brings an example of what we had earlier in the Masechta, din bitay ma'anusasai. The halacha of a person's daughter that he has not from a wife, but from a woman that he was ma'anis, and he has a daughter. So now this bitay manusase, it doesn't say clearly in the pasuk that it's aser. In the pasuk it says bas pincha or bas pitcha, which is a granddaughter. But it doesn't say ever in the pasuk clearly that a daughter of an anusa would be aser to the person. So where is it learned out from? From Gzeira Shava. Asya, we learn out the Gzeira Shava of heina. The word heina that it says by a person that has a relation with his granddaughter from an anusa. And then it says the word heina by his wife's daughter. Bas Ishtay. And just like by Bas Ishtay, it's also a daughter, not just a granddaughter. So we learn that the same thing also applies to Bitay Manusasai. Now this is a case where there's a chiyuv of kodesh for this. If it's b'mezid, you chayav kodesh. If it's without a proper warning, there will be a chiyuv of kodesh. Now then there's also an additional drasha, the Gemara said before in the Masechta, Asya Zima. We also learn out the Gzeira Shava then of Zima, that's learned from the Bitay Manusasai to the Zima that it says by a Bas Kayin, that you would be chayav streifa for this. So this is a case of Gzeira Shava where it's being mechadesh a chiyuv of kodesh. So if there's an argument between the Zaken Mamre and the rest of the Bezin regarding this Gzeira Shava, it's an argument regarding a chiyuv kodesh. Going back to the Braisa, it said ben dam ledam, that there's an argument between the Zaken Mamre and the Bezin regarding blood, and it said ben dam nida, dam leida, dam ziva, whether the argument is regarding any of these cases of blood, this could be a chiyuv kodesh. So the Gemara explains each one of them. What could be the chiyuv kodesh? Dam nida, the chiyuv kodesh by a dam nida, that would be in a case of the plukte, the akavi b'ma'alal v'rabonon. An argument regarding the colors of the blood that a woman sees, whether this would be tummy or not. The Tnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, dam hayaruk. If you have blood, the literal translation of this is green, but it doesn't really mean mamish like green, like dark green or green, but it means more like yellowish, which has a little bit of a reddish tinge to it. So the question is whether this blood is tummy or not. Akavi b'malal metame. Akavi b'malal says it is blood which is tummy and shall be a nida. V'chachamim metaren. And chachamim say that she's going to be tired. So over here you see that this is a case of a nida, a husband that has a relation with a nida, as a chiyuv kodesh. So this is a question of a chiyuv of kodesh. And the Rashi explains that either way, if the Zaken Mamre holds, whether he holds like Kavi ben Malalel, or even if he holds like the Chachamim that are Metayer, he's causing a Isser of chiyuv kodesh, because if you start counting from if she saw blood afterwards, if she saw first this blood before and she saw blood afterwards, so then it's a big difference from when you start counting the dam nida. So therefore, this is a case of chiyuv kodesh. Now, the case of dam leida, the blood that a woman sees in birth. So what's the machlokes here? That there's a chiyuv kodesh. Beplukte the Rav Levi. There's an argument of Rav and Levi about this. The Itma, we learned the following machlokes. Rav says, okay, so here before we see this machlokes, what we're talking about over here is after a woman gives birth, there's the halacha of a woman that gives birth by a zachar, and the case of a woman that gives birth by an akeva. And we're talking about here all about the halachas the way it is minatayra. The halachas that are mentioned here, the same regarding what was mentioned before, the dam nida and dam ziva. So b'zman hazeh, we don't go exactly by that kind of halacha. And over here as well, this is the halacha minatayra. So the halacha minatayra is that by a woman that gives birth, Rashi uses the example of an akeva. A woman that gives birth to an akeva, for 2 weeks, she's tameh. So, but then after 2 weeks, she can go to the mikveh and she's tired, and then after that, any blood that she sees until 80 days after the birth is what's called dam toihar. This blood will not make her tameh. till 80 days of the birth. That's by a nekeva. So let's use that example, and here let's see what the machlokes is. So Rav says, Mayon echad, the blood that she sees within the first 2 weeks where she's tamei, or then what you see, the blood that she sees afterwards in the time of dam toyar, or the blood that she sees later on after the 80 days, all this blood is coming from one source. It's coming from the same place. So, but hatayre timasai and vatayre tarasai. There's the time period where the Torah says that this blood is tamei, and there's a time period where the Torah says that it's tar, but it's the same blood. But Velevi Amar, however, Levi says, no, Shnei Mayon is saying, these are bloods that are coming from different sources in the body of the woman. Nistama Tomei, when the source of the blood that's Tomei is closed, Niftach HaToir. So then the other source of where the blood comes from, which is Tahir, Nistama Toir, when the blood which is Tahir is closed after 80 days, that source is closed. Now Niftach HaTomei, the blood that she sees after 80 days shall be Tomei. Right, so over here we see Pashta Machlokes. It seems like a Machlokes regarding the Metzias of this blood, if it's considered to be one blood or different bloods. So Rashi here explains what's the practical difference between this Machlokes between Rav and Levi. In a case where this woman begins seeing blood and it continues flowing. For example, she began seeing blood on the 14th day after her birth. She's still on the last day from the 2 weeks where it's still blood that's tamei, and it continues flowing then into the day afterwards where it's already the time period of dam toyar. According to Rav, so the blood that she sees on the 14th day is still tamei, and the blood that she sees on the next day is tired. Even though we know in such a case for a fact that it's from the same source, because it's the same blood that's flowing. You can't say it's from a different source. But nevertheless, it doesn't matter. According to Rav, this is the Gzeres HaKosov, that on 2 weeks she's tamei, and the blood later she's tahir. But according to Levi, because we see that it's the same blood that's flowing, so then we know for a fact that it's the same blood. So in such a case, even though it's already into the time period, which usually it's dam toyar, but because it began flowing from before, it'll still be dam that's tummy. And the same thing also will apply regarding later on, from 80 days. By the end of 80 days, it's dam toyar, and from the 80 days, it goes into the 81st day, and it's one flow. It'll be the same machlokes between Rav and Levi. So this is also a case where there's a chi of kares for this, and if there's going to be an argument between the Zaken Mamre and the other Chachamim, so this is an argument regarding the chi of kares, whether this is dam toyar, whether it's dam tomei, and it can be relevant in both cases. It can be relevant from going from the 2 weeks to the 80 days, from the 80 days to the 81st day, and therefore either way, the Zaken Mamre is arguing here about a subject of kares. Now another case of the blood by a woman, dam Ziva, the blood of a Ziva, where there's an argument, that's beplukte the Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. So what's the argument of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua? That now we learned in the Mishnah regarding a woman that's in her time period of Ziva. So Kishisa Shloisha Yomim, if she is seeing blood and she's having labor pains for giving birth for 3 days, and this is B'toich Achad Asayim. This is within that time period of the 11 days that she's a Zava. Now, usually a Zava that sees blood for 3 days, in this time period, she becomes a Zava Gedayla. But now, the question though in this case is, what happens if she's giving birth afterwards? So then, the blood that she sees does not have to be attributed to the Dam Zava. It's not necessarily she is Zava. Maybe this is just the beginning of her labor pains and the blood that comes with birth. So then she won't be a Zava. So here there's a machlokes about this. So the first, Rabbi Eliezer here says, Im shavsa me'es leida, me'es le'es, that is, v'yolda, if she saw blood for 3 days in this time period, but then it quieted down. For 3 days it quieted down, not 3 days, me'es le'es, that is, for a 24-hour period it quieted down, and v'yolda, and only then did she give birth. Hareizu yoledes b'zayv. So she's going to have, besides the tumah of Leda, that she has to bring later karbanis for the Leda, she's also going to be a Zava, because the 3 days she saw, there was a break between that and the birth of the 24-hour period. She's going to be a Zava and a Yoledes. That's the Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, the break that there would be in between in order to determine that she's a Zava is different. It's more. Laila v'yom. It has to specifically be a break where it begins with the night and then a day. Kilele Shabbos v'yom, just like a Shabbos. A Shabbos starts from the night and then the day. So that's when I consider it to be a break. So if the break was, for example, from the middle of the day, to the middle of the next day, even if it's a 24-hour period, according to Rabbi Yeshua, that doesn't qualify as a break from the time of Zava to the birth. And therefore, in such a case, she will not be a Zava. Now, the Braisa clarifies, or the Mishnah rather clarifies, that when we speak here about this break between the time when she saw the blood and then when she gave birth, sheshavsa menatzar. What it's talking about is that the labor pains quieted down. V'loi menadam. Not necessarily that the flow of the blood stopped, even if she continued seeing blood, but that doesn't matter. What we're discussing over here is whether the labor pain stopped or not. So here, this is a case which is also relevant to a Chiyav Kares, because here there's a machlekes regarding the blood that she sees at birth, whether this is just blood from birth or this is also blood from ziva. So this machlekes, if the Zaken Mamre argues, he will be Chayav Kares for this. Okay, now going to the next case that the Braisa said, Bein din ledin. What does the pasuk mean when it says din ledin? Bein dine momenis, dine nefoshes, dine makis. So in all these cases, it could lead to something which is going to be kares. Now, dine momenis, by money matters, if they're arguing about money matters, where's there a kares regarding money matters? It says the Gemara beplukta de Shmuel v'Rabavo. So, for example, the machlekes of Shmuel and Rabavo that we had in the beginning of this Masechta. The Amma Shmuel says, Shnayim shadanu, if only two are judges to judge a halacha of money matters, dinayim din, their din is a din. Elosh nikram bezdin chotzef. They're a bezdin that's a chutzpah de gebezdin, but their din is a din. Rabavo disagrees and he says, L'divrei HaKoil, everybody agrees that ain dinayan din, their din is not a din. You must have three people that paskin. Okay, so now how does this lead to a Chiyav Kares? So Rashi explains, because in this case, what happens if only two paskin, and then you took away money from one person and gave it to someone else? So according to Shmuel, the money that you gave to this person based on this psak din of bezdin is his. So now if he takes that money and he's mekadesh isha with this money, it's his money and the isha will be mekadeshes. But according to Rabavo, she will not be mekadeshes because the money that was given to him is a gzeila. It's not his money. The two people are not allowed to paskin. So the money that he used, she will not be an eishesish. So this is money that you're using over here, and it's going to be negeya to whether she's an eishesish or not, which is also a Chiyav Kares. Okay, so therefore, it's negeya, and Rashi says it could also be negeya if after the first kedushin there's a second kedushin afterwards. You have to know whether the first kedushin was a kedushin or not. So either way, if the Zaken Mamre argues against the Bezdin regarding this halacha, it'll be an issue that could lead to kares. So what that means is, it's not only regarding this case is just an example, but in any case where there's a psak din of dinei mamanis and there's an argument about it, since it could always be relevant whether the money is yours or the money is exelar, so in such a case it could lead to a Chiyav Kares if you use the money for kiddushin. Now the next thing it said in the Braisa was dinei nefoshes. So how does dinei nefoshes lead to a Chiyav Kares? Beplukta the Rebbe v'Rabbanan. This is the argument of Rebbe and Rabbanan that was also brought earlier here in the Masechta. The Tanya we learned in the Braisa, Rebbe says. So this is the halacha we learned earlier in the Masechta regarding a case of a ritzeyach, person that's a murderer, but he's niskav and lara gezeh v'hara gezeh. He intended to kill one, and he ended up killing another. And that's the case of what the pasuk is talking about over there, when there's a fight between two people, and instead of killing one, he killed another, he killed a woman. And the pasuk there says, v'nasato nefesh tachas nefesh. Now what does that mean? So according to Rebbe holds like Rab Shimon that says that in such a case, you're not going to be chayiv misa for this, because niskav and lara gezeh v'hara gezeh is potter from misa. So when it says nefesh tachas nefesh, what does that mean? Mamay. That he has to just pay for the money loss that there is here. Now, Rebbe clarifies, how do you know that this is money? Maybe even a satan nefesh tachas nefesh means that he's chayiv misa for this. So he learns out, no, neman is sina l'mayla, and neman is sina l'mato. On the pasuk there it says the term nisina twice, ma lahalon mamin. Just like in the pasuk earlier, or when it says the term nisina there means it's talking about a case where the woman is still alive, but she just lost her pregnancy. There it's clear that it's talking only about money for the loss of the pregnancy. Afkan mamin. Here as well, even if he killed the woman herself, the pasuk says, Vimhoya asain, there was a tragedy and he killed the woman, but he didn't intend to kill her, he's only going to be chayav to pay money. That's the opinion of Rebbe. However, the Rabbanan disagree with this. The Rabbanan say that in such a case, v'nasata nefesh tachas nefesh, he'll be chayiv misa for this. And he's chayiv misa, that you're not chayiv any moment. Once you chayiv misa, there's the halacha of kamle b'der rabbi minei, you don't pay any moment. So over here, Rashi explains it's the exact same thing like before. When you're paying this money, you paid the money to the yarshim, to the inheritors. Is that money that is theirs? Or is it money which is just exela? Because this person is really chayiv misa, he shouldn't be paying this money. So if then that money is going to be used for a kiddushin, it'll be relevant now to a Chiyav Kares. And therefore, this is another case where there's a possibility that it leads to kares. The next case, the Braisa said, Dine Makis, that if there's an argument, the Zaken Mamre argues about Makis. So over here, it's the same point. Beplukte, the Rabbi Yeshua, the Rabbanon. The Tanan, the Mishnah says, in the beginning of the Masechta, when a Bezdin paskins that a person is chayiv Makis, Makis begimel. You have to have a Bezdin just of 3. A Bezdin of 3 can give someone Malkis. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amru b'chav gimel. You have to have a Bezdin of 23. So how is this something that could lead to a Chiyav Kodesh? Because if a Bezdin is being mechayiv someone Malkis when he doesn't deserve this Malkis, and what happens? As a result of this Malkis, he gets a Chabala, he gets a wound. What happens if one Yid hits another Yid and he makes a wound? There's money payment that you have to pay for this, for the wound that you cause. So over here, when the Bezdin paskin, and let's say it was just a Bezdin of 3, and the Bezdin paskin, and because he got a wound, so if you go according to the opinion that you have to have the Bezdin of 23, so then you're going to have to pay for the wound that you caused. You weren't allowed to give Malchus in this case. So over here, the question again is about the payment of the money for this wound, whether it's a good payment, whether it's a gzeila, and here as well, that money that's used for a Kiddushin later will be relevant for a Chiyav of Kodesh. So you see over here how the Chiyav of Kodesh, even if it's a few steps removed of what the actual argument is, it's considered to be a Chiyav Kodesh, that will be Chayav Misa for. Now, Bein Nega LeNega, the Braisa went on to say regarding the Goyim, and it said Bein Nege Yodam, Nege Batim, Nege Begodim, and all these kinds of cases of Negoyim. If there's an argument about this, the Zaken Mamre will be Chayav Misa. The case of Nege Yodam is Beplukte de Rabbi Yeshua v'Rabbanon. The argument of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbanon that Nan, the Mishnah says regarding a Beheres, in Beheres Kaidum L'Seir Alova. So you have the white spot of the Nega. So if that white spot came before the hairs in that area turned white, then Tomei, then it's Tomei. But say love on Kaidin LeBaheres, if the hairs turned white first, and then there's the Baheres Toy, then it'll be Toy. Now in a case of a Suffolk, Tomei. So the Tanakama says in a case of a Suffolk, what came first, he'll still be Tomei. Because according to the Tanakama, usually the Baheres comes first, and the Seiya turns white afterwards, so we say it's Tomei. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, Keha. Now what does this term Keha mean? My Keha, Amarava, Keha means Toir. Then in such a case, he's going to be Toir. This is the machlokes regarding the naga of the person. So over here, it's a machlokes whether this person is a mitzayra or not. Now, if this person is tamei and he's a mitzayra, he's not allowed to walk into the Beis HaMikdash. If he walks into the Beis HaMikdash, he's tamei, he's going to be chayiv kares. So therefore, this argument regarding this nega will be relevant whether the person will get kares later on or not. The next case, nege batem, beplukte, the Rabbi Elazar, Rab Shimon, Rabbanon. There's an argument between Rabbi Elazar, Rab Shimon, and the Rabbanon regarding nege batem. We had this also earlier in the Masechta. That now the Mishnah says, Rabbi Elazar, Rab Shimon, Omer, lo olam ein abayis tomei. A house will not become tomei with a nega. Ad sheyire kishnei grisen al shtei avonim. You have to see a nega that's the size in its length. 2 grisen, and it has to be on 2 stones of the house, and we're b'shtei ksalim, and it has to be 2 stones from 2 walls, and it also has to be specifically bekeren zavis, 2 stones in a corner, and orcha is kishnei grisen. This neg has to be in the length 2 grisen, and veroch by kegris, and in the width has to be a gris. Very, very specific kind of nega. The Gemara actually said before, based on this, Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon says that according to him, the Gemara said that there was never such a thing as a nega on a house, because it's very hard to meet all these standards. Now, the Chachamim, though, disagree with this. My time with Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon, what's the source of Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon that has to be so specific? Because Ksiv Kir, in one pasuk it talks about the nega and it uses a singular term of a wall. Or Ksiv Kir Reis, then it uses the plural term. Ezehu Kir Shuhu Kir Reis, where do you have one wall that's like 2 walls? Havayim Ezeh Keren Zavis. When you have a wall, it continues, but it goes to a corner and it turns. That's one wall that becomes a second wall. So here, this is the case of Nige Batim, where there's a machlokes between the Chachamim and Rabbi Elazar and Rab Shimon, whether this would be a nega or not. So if a person walks into this house and he becomes tamei, and then he goes into the Beis HaMikdash, this leads to a chiyav kares. This is the case where if there's an argument of the zaken mamre, he would be chayav misa as well. Okay, the Gemara will continue going through all the details of the Braisa, pointing out other cases as well where it's a chiyav kares.